Hi everyone, welcome to Lights, Camera, Action. I'm Allison Howard and your host for tonight. Tonight we're going to be talking to three wonderful actors who are all great, huge people in the Washington, D.C. area. So first we have Julie Garvey, Pete Garvey, believe it or not they're married, and then Brian McKeon. Thank you so much each of you for coming.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. So we're going to just start from the beginning. How did each of you get into acting? Whoever wants to start.
I grew up in the theater. My dad was a set and lighting designer, and then I majored in dance. And then probably in early 2004, when Ladder 49 came to town, I got bit by the bug and was an extra in 4 movies, and it kind of progressed from there. So
you were in Ladder 49?
I was. It was great. It was so much fun.
I love that movie.
It was awesome. John Travolta. He's my man.
Joaquin Phoenix?
Yes.
Okay, Pete, how about you?
Well, in high school, one of my older brothers was a lead in the musical, and that really motivated me to get involved. And so, at about age 15, I got my first part in one act. So,
isn't it amazing the motivation that an older sibling will give you?
Most definitely, put them on a pedestal and want to step right up.
You just want to knock them off.
Well, that too.
That too. How about you, Brian?
When I was slapped on the butt by my mom's person who delivered me. No, I'm joking. Not that person. Funny enough, I did not really get into acting until I was later, proper theater, if you will. I was always used to being in front of people, like in my church and other, arenas. I was always used to being in front of people doing things. And I went to college my second time around for theater. I actually wanted to score music for film, and that was my big motivation. And so when I went to school, I got a dual major in theater and music. And at our first drama club meeting at the advisor's home, she said, "Well, Brian, you're going to have to act. You can't just learn, how theater works and all this." And I said, "Okay, sure." And so I got cast in a couple of small plays, and then it just kind of went from there. So I got more and more involved in it. So I came at it more from a novice performer angle, and then kind of I learned the techniques and everything later. Because, as kids, we always like to play characters and such as that. And I just, was in love with fooling people into thinking I was somebody else.
That's always the way that it seems to start, right? Just with play as a child. That's great. But you did end up majoring, you said, in theater and music?
Yeah, I got an interdisciplinary bachelor's degree.
And then how about Pete and Julie? Did you two end up studying theater in school, or?
I have a degree in Shakespearean theater.
Oh,
yep.
Great.
Yep. And I thought I was going to be a great Shakespearean actor. Well,
I'm sure you are.
thank you.
And Julie, how about you?
My degree was in dance, so I took the dance route.
That.
Yeah, and I think that was my main segue. But I did some shows in middle school, high school.
Of course. So with all of this, did you anticipate this being your original career path when you were younger? Was being an actor something that you had fascinated, obviously, wanted to do? I know, Pete, you had said that you, ever since
Absolutely.
you were little with your brother.
I was convinced this was going to be where life was taking me. And it honestly is taking me there now, but it's several years after I had anticipated.
And you had always seen yourself performing, but not necessarily.
Actually, no.
Really?
Yeah, I had a double major, dance and psychology. I was going to be do dance therapy with children. And yeah,
Oh, wow.
now I work for the federal government, so it kind of totally diverged.
Do you ever work with kids in film? Have you ever had the
I
chance
have,
to?
yes, actually quite frequently, and it has been a lot of fun. Actually, I have gotten some really good kids to work with.
Oh, good.
But I have also seen the other side where it has been a little difficult.
Yes.
So
I've always heard that you never want to work with children or animals.
yes, yeah. I have gotten lucky though, I have to say. So it's been good.
How about you, Brian?
What was the question again?
Well, no, it was. So obviously you did major in theater and everything. So you I don't know if you necessarily knew it from like a young age.
It's funny you mentioned. Well, my journey is kind of interesting. Well, to some folks. When I was a kid, I used to love watching documentaries. I used to love movies. Where I grew up in the Deep South, I did not have the I did not have many encounters with stage. In fact, I thought stage was boring because to me, I wanted to see film because movies you could edit, you could make all this stuff happen. You couldn't have a documentary on the African safari on stage, but you could do it in film.
Right.
So my love for that was more about the imagery, the way you put things together. So I kind of went this big loop, but I got involved in theater because I didn't know theater, film, and all that when I was in school for sound design. And as it came back around, I was like, I used to fantasize about being in a movie. Not like I wanted to be a big star, but it was just like I'd go to the film and go, I would love to just be part of that thing up there, like the imagery, and I know I could do something with it. So that was kind of the way my approach was. It was on again, off again, but it wasn't, I didn't really fit what I thought of as the actor stereotype. You know? I just didn't really think about that. It was just a fun thing.
Right. Very cool. Is there now, I think all three of you are mostly involved with film in front of the camera. But are there any roles that you guys would be interested in maybe pursuing that are behind the camera, whether it's pre-production producing or on set as being a director or post-production if you wanted to learn how to do, any other sort of job like special effects?
That is so hugely challenging, I think. There's one thing, certainly even coming in from the actor's perspective, it's sort of the icing on the cake, if you will, that all of the pre-production's been taken care of. There's just a massive team effort to bring any production to fruition. So I think I have the utmost respect for the directors, the producers, to have the creativity, the vision, to lace these stories together, to be able to then break it down into a shooting schedule. It's fascinating to me. I admire them, but I think at this point I personally am more comfortable just being on camera.
But he's dabbling in a little bit of screenplay writing too, because he enjoys writing. So that's been fun, and it's been fun to kind of collaborate and participate with it, and as far as that goes. So.
Well, that's a little bit more than just dabbling. I think that's a huge feat, just creating your own story. What has that process been like for you?
That's quite fascinating. Some production friends of ours, producers, met with us and said they had an interest in putting a film together, but that they needed a writer. So, well, I write, and so we started brainstorming, and for about 2 days we brainstormed, and I basically recorded everything we were talking about and kind of bullet points, and came back and wrote a screenplay and had them read through it. They're very impressed and would like to produce it. So this is...
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's very exciting.
Did you write yourself into it?
I did.
Oh,
And
He wants to,
Julie-
he wants to
and
be
Julie
in
as well.
front and behind the camera, a little bit of do it all.
right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, why not? I mean, and also if you get the chance to write a character, then you know exactly what's needed. You understand the backstory, and you just you can delve into it from just like head first.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Give it a real depth and dimension. That,
Right.
Sort of a real personal touch.
That's amazing. Did you write Julia a role
I
as
did.
well?
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Preserve that marital bliss,
Right.
Exactly.
Now have we jumped to you yet? What would you like to try? Any other job beyond acting at this moment?
Well, what I do, as they say in Young Frankenstein, watch that just the other, one of my faves. I've directed before. I often direct, but right for the past couple years, I have myself been dabbling in screenplay writing with a friend who's more of a playwright. He's a good storyteller, and I wanted his guidance. So I've been studying. I consider myself an extreme amateur. I'm good at critiquing and helping people form stories and write them, but when it comes to taking my own ideas and try to put them into something, I have to have somebody else look at it, because I know that, we tend to kind of be a little showy sometimes, and always can write things that we think, well, they should understand that, but if they don't understand it, you've got to do some rewrite.
Right.
But so it's basically directing and writing. I used to do mostly composition and music, but I do
Right.
that more for just fun now.
Well, the collaborative process that I'm sure that comes to the table with writing, I'm sure that did you write? You wrote with a team of people, didn't you? Or was it really just you?
What was
that
me
wrote
doing
it?
the final screenplay
Okay.
itself. It was a collaboration in sort of
Creating
identifying
the
the
arc.
characters, the environment, and sort of then piecing it all together.
Yeah, I think I think it would be a much easier process to be able to have. Well, not much easier, but also just having that collaboration with people by creating the story together.
Absolutely.
I feel like that would be so beneficial because people might see things that you don't necessarily
Most
see.
definitely. And what's more is that takes a little of the pressure off when you actually have the screenplay read. Like,
Yes.
oh, I hope they love it.
Oh, right. And I'm sure they did. And obviously they did.
They did. Yeah,
Of course they
I'm so
did.
thrilled. It was impressive. Thank you.
So for you, have you wanted to delve into anything beyond acting?
Well, I did a lot behind the scenes in theater growing up with my dad, and then actually as a dancer, my freshman year, I stage managed and danced at the same time. So I was in full costume and would run off, put the headset on, do my calls and cues, switch it to my assistant, and run back on. But as far as TV and film, yeah, I think it would be interesting just for the other point of view that you don't get when you're in front of the camera. You see and how much work it takes, and I try sometimes, especially if Pete's on set and I kind of tag along, I'll help. I become an assistant grip or something like that. So I have done a little bit back and forth. It's fun. It's good to see both sides of it.
Yes,
Gives you
it
an
is.
appreciation for everything that it takes to create something on TV, film, theater. I think it's important that everybody has that experience.
Yes, I agree. It's a huge collaborative process.
Yes.
Now, speaking about how you two have written roles for film and for stage and things, is there any kind of role that you've wanted to play that you haven't had a chance to play yet, that maybe you could write for yourself, or that you could audition for, or is there anything in particular, like a type of character you want to play?
You looking at me, man? Well, you know, all of us actors have our bucket list.
Right.
Okay. Believe it or not, it's not Hamlet. I'm too old to play Hamlet, but you know, it's so to write a role and to play a role. The existing roles that I would love to play, there's two of them. The main one is Tevye from Fiddler on the Roof. Is one of my dream roles. I've never played him. The other one would probably be, I love playing Bottom from Midsummer Night's Dream. That's one of my faves. As far as one that I would write for myself, I've always been fascinated with secret agents. And I'm not talking about like James Bond per se. I'm talking about the whole idea. I think the idea of playing a persona, playing somebody you're not, just appeals to me even beyond just the acting level. Because in many parts of my life, I feel like I've had to be a chameleon. To get through the workplace. I've had to do this, I've had to do that, I've had to do this. People say, oh, you're so good at that. And I'm like, really? I just figured it out because I had to. Or I had to be up close and personal with, say, the French ambassador once. And it's like, hi, how are you? You know, so hey, man, how's it going? You know. So I've always had a fascination. So that's probably my biggest fantasy, I guess you could say. I've actually entertained the notion of reviving the show Secret Agent from the 60s, because Pat McGowan is probably my favorite actor from the 60s and the 70s.
Yeah.
The guy who was in The Prisoner, I don't know if y'all are familiar with that, but I watched every single episode. My wife bought them for me for Christmas one year. They were on sale.
Wow. So a secret agent.
Secret Agent was what it was called in the United States, and Danger Man was what it's called in the U.S. So we all know the Johnny Rivers song. That's where it came from.
Gotcha.
But they're fascinating because he never used violence. Well, he used his fist, but he never pulled guns.
Right.
He used his wit. And, of course, that's a big difference between British secret agents and American secret agents. Like, torture, kill, you know.
Pulling fingernails.
Pull.
How about you guys? Is there a particular role that you would like to play that you haven't yet?
It's ironic, yeah. Some of the things I can just mimic with Sonny Crockett. I'm sort of, throwback to the 80s, but Sonny Crockett, Miami Vice, would love to recreate. Even if I recreated a scene. There's a scene that's driving his car down the highway in Miami. Anyway, I'd love to do something Sonny Crockett, or maybe Steve McGarrett, Hawaii Five-0.
Okay.
Okay, something like that. Like Take Charge. Maybe
Yeah.
Jason Bourne.
Yes.
I think that would be really, really awesome. On the theater side, John Adams from 1776 is a dream role of mine.
Didn't Shakespeare Theater Company recently do 1776?
Yes, they did.
Yes, they did.
Yeah, and we opted, due to scheduling issues, we opted not to go down that path.
Yeah. And how about you?
Right now, I would say my most immediate desire would be to do a ghost role. You got to do one. Pete's gotten to do one. I've seen, the makeup and the transformation, and to look in the mirror and almost not recognize yourself. I would love that experience.
And to scare people.
And to scare people. I know. Yeah.
That's so
I would.
fun.
I would really like to do that. So I'm crossing my fingers.
Just have Pete write you a role.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Well, ironically, in this screenplay,
Oh my gosh. I'll have to
Maybe.
wait and see. Fingers crossed it happens.
absolutely.
So when you were talking about just now about scheduling issues with the theater production of 1776, theater does require a lot of time. So I'm sure that there are obviously scheduling conflicts within, film as well, but also just within theater. Have you found that you've opted more towards film because it doesn't require as much of a schedule commitment as opposed to theater?
Precisely, and it's an interesting sort of interpersonal challenge, if you will, that coming from a theater background, I'm all about building the character, getting to the core, really exploring the depths, sort of the before and after, and being able to do this over a period of 2 or 3 months.
Well, you've got more time to
absolutely,
do
in TV
that
and film, you've got to make that happen in 2 to 3 days.
immediately.
So it's an interesting leap, and certainly having those fundamentals of theater and being able to apply them to the film characters, it's made that transition somewhat easier. But on the same token, it's difficult to actually get to that depth that the theatrical characters you're able to attain in that long rehearsal process.
That's very true. Brian, how about you?
Same way, same reason, and I think it's just a commitment process. My wife did some math one time. She said, "Honey, I want to figure out how much you're being paid from rehearsal day one
no.
to the last show." And she did the math, and I was like, "Are you serious? 6 weeks of rehearsal, 6 weeks of a show. That's without an extended
8 cents
run."
an hour, huh?
Yeah, so roughly, that's funny, about 8 cents an hour. And I was like, wow. I mean, I love doing it, the gymnastics of all of it and the spirit of it. But there's something, I have to say, there is something satisfying about something small that you work on and you get it done.
Yes.
You do piece by piece. And the one thing about theater is, if you're a theater reviewer, I won't use the C word, but if you're a reviewer and you come in on one night and it just flops, it's bad energy, and then the next night it's stupendous, what are people going to read in the newspaper or on a blog? You're going to go, "Oh, it was disappointing," but you didn't see the next night. In film, it's frozen forever.
That's true.
So in a way, that's
point.
kind of part of the, I guess you could say, the glory of screen.
That's a good point.
Right.
Capture the magic.
Absolutely. And editors have such a huge impact on how things are perceived within
Yes.
film that a lot of times, if you pick certain things, like how you say it's frozen in time, but the editor really does have complete control, whereas like how you said, depending on what show you go to during the week, could be a completely different experience. So each of us have been obviously received the opportunity to be in productions, but oftentimes you have to go through an audition process to get there. Tell me about your perception of auditions. What is the hardest part? What is something that you've come to learn over the course of acting for the past couple of years by going to auditions? Is there anything in particular that's been like groundbreaking for you when you've gone into an audition and had something happen and you go, "I'm never going to do that again," or "I'm always going to do that again"?
I think first and foremost, overthinking the situation. It's human nature. As actors, you put yourself forward. You're selling yourself. And while that is absolutely true, you have to disconnect from that belief. You are, if you're there, if you're at that audition, you already have the tools necessary to do the job. So put that in your inner core and believe in yourself. Don't doubt in your capability and actually go forth and do it. I think that's probably the single biggest thing that I've kind of come around to. Initially, I get really, concerned. How are they going to perceive me? What if I mess up a line? What if I do something wrong? So I think
Relinquish control.
Yes. Well, and it's funny too because we've been blessed to have some direct bookings, and it's amazing how when you already have it, you're confident that you can go ahead and do it, and you may have never seen this character, or you don't know what you have to do until you show up that day. And then you start thinking about it. Well, it's the same thing with an audition.
Right.
You don't know what you're going to have to do until you show up. So if I try and equate the two together to say the audition, I need to treat it the same way. I need to just jump in and do it as if I already have it. And like Pete said, if you nail it, you still might not get it. And, you know, that's the way that the business is, and it's been a hard lesson to learn, but the faster you can get that into your head, the easier it is on you.
Yes. The easier it is on your conscience.
Exactly.
How about you? Hardest part, or words of wisdom?
Words of wisdom. Wait until you get in the car with the windows rolled up, the stereo blaring, before you scream, "That son of a... I can't believe it! Suck! I suck! I suck!" And then you just go home. You wouldn't believe the number of people I've seen do that. They'll go out back at a cattle call, and they'll just be like, "God, if I just did this, if I just..." And we all have that temptation. We all are self-critics.
Yes. Worst.
Worst.
Critics, yep.
The best piece of advice, and this is something that I also coach actors and teachers, teach actors. One thing I told students is that you are being cast not as soon as you open your mouth, but as soon as you walk on the stage. That is the dirty little secret that no one's ever going to tell you. So I said, if you make a great approach on that stage, they may look at the way you walked up there and just completely ignore your monologue, and then when you walk off. Because it's easier for a director to work with somebody who's, when they're acting, they're close, you know, the person who's doing their monologue is closer to that character. I mean, you know, I played a serial killer before. I'm not a serial killer, but I put my Brian-ness into it, and it was, people were like, "Oh my God, you're so nice," but yet, you know, and it worked. But that's the main thing, is claim the real estate when you're up there, but be aware that you are being looked at the moment you walk on stage. And that can be a selling point, because you might mess up on that stage. I've done it before. I've gone up in a monologue.
You're absolutely right.
You know.
Especially in even given a slate. When you're slating your name, make sure that you do it very comfortably, you know. And
Yes.
they're watching from that point. Absolutely.
That's great. I mean, no, those are all really great words of wisdom. I'm sure that the audience is really going to appreciate hearing all of those things, because I know that a lot of people, when you walk into an audition room, the first thing that a lot of people do is just freeze up, tense up, and then they leave, and you're like, "Oh, I wish I had done that."
Right.
And there's only so much you can, sometimes there's only so much you can really do when you go to an audition, because you don't necessarily know what is even going to happen, how much they give you to prepare for. So a lot of times you're just left up to the tools that you have.
Absolutely. And just to tack in one other thing that I've learned along the way is feel free to ask questions. I think
Yes.
there's a hesitation
That's
when
right.
you come in, because these are the gods. You don't really want to upset anybody. And how are you? And go in and ask questions. What's happening in this? Can you kind of describe the scene? What is this character doing? Anything like that to help you fill it out a little bit more. And
Right.
be comfortable with it.
Have any of you been on the other side of the casting table? Have any of you ever cast anything? Brian?
Yep, I certainly have.
What was that experience like?
Well, the first play I cast and directed was in college. It was a Joe Orton play. It was one of those that kind of over on the side that not a lot of people knew about, and it had three characters, two guys and one woman. But when I went into it, I did not have a preconceived notion of what their faces would look like, and that's the way I generally operate. Now, when it comes to film, that's a little bit different. I see images. I might see a guy with dark hair, a woman with blonde hair. You know, but for stage, it's a little bit different. For me, it's more about the energy that the person has. And, you know, because you can always work with hair and makeup and glasses and clothing. But I try not to be set in stone, if you will.
Right.
So that's been my process. And my first time around, I was way too soft to my actors. I brought a friend in who was not a director or not any of that. He was a writer. You know, we were both poetry writers. And I said, "Would you mind popping in here and just watching our rehearsal a little bit?" And afterwards, we went outside and said, "So what do you think?" He goes, "Man, you guys are in bad shape." Because he was such a blunt person. And I said, "Dude, what can we do?" And he goes, "Well, here's what you need to do, da-da-da-da-da." And I went, "Okay." He had a great aesthetic sense for everything. So I went back in there and I said, guys, we're going to run it again. I know you want to go home, but we're going to do it again. So I had to become the evil parent. I could not be their buddies because we opened in a week. And it was like that, but it turned out well. It turned out good because everyone just upped their game, you know.
That's great.
So
being on the other side, it's not necessarily so much fun, is it?
not at first. It's
Not at first.
Not at first. But you have to go into it knowing this is what I want. I'm not going to apologize for it. I might be
Right.
wrong, and someone may help correct me, but you have to take charge. Not be mean, but, you know, if someone has a suggestion, it's like, thank you. We'll think about that later rather than like, no or sure. I mean, there's always a halfway point that you can do, but you want your actors focused on their performance.
Absolutely. I completely agree. Have you guys been on the other side of the casting
Absolutely,
table?
Yeah, in the theater.
Okay.
In fact, I used to direct the theater group at the Naval Academy.
Oh,
And,
wow.
it was great to be able to tap into that, tap into the resource potential in each person. It's interesting because to understand as the actors come in, they're already kind of locked up. They're nervous, and that's suppressing, I think, a lot of energy that they have inside them. And I think as a director, and even in the casting process, you can really create a casual, comfortable environment to help bring that energy out of them. And I think it's a wonderful process. So it helped me with a greater appreciation for working with new talent. And kind of lifting them up to a level that they feel comfortable to get out there and really be creative and be confident in what they do. It's really a wonderful process.
That's great.
And I say that in particular because certainly in some of the auditions that we have been through, it's not that it's a very strict strict process. You got to hit your mark and specifically under your light, and here's how you're going to deliver the line and go. And the margin's very narrow there for getting that perfection, and typically you kind of miss the mark in that setting. So.
Yeah. How about you? Have you been on the other side of the
No,
casting
luckily
table?
I have not had to make those tough
Luckily,
decisions.
you
Yes.
say. That's interesting.
Yeah.
You say luckily.
Yeah, luckily, no. I think it's watching. I have been part of the process, not necessarily the one making the decision. I have seen it occurring. It's hard.
Yes.
It's really hard, and I wouldn't want to be in that position. So I try and stay away from that side of the table.
It's hard it's hard when especially when you're in a circumstance when you have to make cutthroat decisions, and obviously only one person can be in
Right.
each role, and you
Right.
don't want to let people down, and a lot of times it's like you want to write a role for each person that comes in and auditions and that type thing because you don't want
Well,
to
and I
leave
think
anybody
too,
out.
as females, it might even be harder because we get the emotional attachment to people, and then you feel sorry for them, or oh, you knew they could have done a little bit better, but they didn't. And you got to remember that. So no, that's.
But also just by keeping the energy at a particular level and also just like making it a relaxed situation, I feel like you do optimize the ability for people to be able to perform at their peak.
Most
Yeah.
definitely.
Obviously, each of us are excited with things that we're working on and things that are going to be coming up. Do you have any upcoming projects that we'll be able to see you guys in, or anything that's going to be released soon that you've been working on, or anything that's in pre-production at the moment? Whoever wants to
Whoop.
start. Oh, it's a
It all goes down the
Look
line.
at
Oh,
that
it
ball.
goes back to
Whoop.
Brian.
Well, I've for the past couple of years, I've been one of the I guess you could call it resident directors for Playwrights Forum in Washington, D.C. So I have a couple of readings coming up. One of them's a reread of an old one that was done before after it was rewritten, and another one's new. I'm not sure yet how public they're going to be, but we can put information if you like on the link on YouTube or something
Or
down
Facebook,
below.
absolutely.
Or whatever,
Yeah.
so that, and I'm also the writing stuff. It's, I've approached a couple of directors that are interested, that want to help me, but they're so busy. So it's kind of like you got a good person, but they're so much in demand. They're like, I don't know when I'll be able to do it. So that's what's going on mostly for me right now.
Would it be a short or a feature or?
Very short.
Very short.
Very short. I believe in doing short, and getting the basic essentials down. My friend who's a playwright and I, who have been working on our screenplays together, I think at some point if we don't get it nailed down with a higher level director, we'll probably just get our flip cams and iPhones and rig something up, you know, with a
Yeah.
broom handle and a drop mic or something.
Yeah.
Because we just want to get it done.
No, absolutely. Did you hear about the film that was that premiered at South by Southwest that was shot 100% on an iPhone?
No, but
Oh
I'm
my
not
gosh.
surprised because
So
you can
it
do
is
so much
completely
more.
doable.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
And the things that
Crazy.
you can do, obviously with iPhones, but then you also have those GoPro cameras.
Mm-hmm.
The type of footage that you can get from each of those is
Broadcast
unbelievable.
quality.
And you can just put those, and you can just blow that up onto a big movie screen, and nobody's gonna know the difference.
And you can overdub if you need to.
Exactly.
Do it just like a European Western or something like that. You know.
Exactly. How about you, Pete? Anything coming up?
It's been a good summer. We've got 3 shows coming up. I've got 2 episodes with, it's called Secrets of the Arsenal, and this is with the former military channel, now called American Heroes Channel.
Okay.
And these 2 episodes are the recreation of events that occurred in World War II. The highlight was to be shooting on the submarine, the USS Torsk in Baltimore Inner Harbor, and
What was that like?
oh, it was fantastic.
Did
It
you get
was-
claustrophobic at
Not
all?
at all. I love it. I love the subs. I love being on board, and it was definitely a time capsule. This is an event that took place, you know, in World War II. So you really felt it. They recreated that environment, and I won't tell too much, but it's coming up. So that's one episode. The second one was a harrowing experience. This was on the shot on the John W. Brown Liberty ship, also in Baltimore, and it was doubling as a heavy cruiser that was being torpedoed in the Asiatic in 1944. It was torpedoed with 90 torpedoes were fired at it, and finally the ship did sink. So this scene was the last battle.
Oh my
and,
gosh.
on the bridge.
How did it stay afloat?
Oh, it's incredible. It's an amazing story of heroism
can't
and
wait to
loss, of course,
watch.
as well. So those 2 are coming up, and also another one called American Supernatural for the Weather Channel, where it's another ghost story, interestingly enough. And this time I am not the ghost, but I am try to pick up a ghost, basically.
Oh, I tried to pick up a
Yeah, literally on the highway. But
Oh.
yeah.
Hey, man. Anything goes in
It's
today's
true.
TV world.
Yeah.
How about you, Julie? Anything coming up?
Actually, I've been doing a lot of photo shoots lately, so
Very
waiting for
cool.
those to pop up. And then we actually did an episode of Evil Kin for the ID channel, and got to play a married couple, which we frequently are
are.
asked to do. But in this one, he apparently had a little mistress on the side, and we got back
Cute.
together, but she decided she still was not happy and came in, and so yeah, that was so that should be coming out soon. So it'll be interesting to see. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Well,
that's
that's always fun.
So pleasant.
Yes.
Who knew that 30 minutes could fly by so
Oh
fast?
my goodness.
I know. Thank you so much for each of you coming in and sharing your stories and all of your advice. I'm sure that our audience will love hearing from each of you. So this has been Lights, Camera, Action with Allison Howard, and I've been talking to 3 wonderful actors who work in the DC area. Everybody should hire them. And see you next time.